Welcome to episode 3 of the Service Course Report. All three of us are here in Carpinteria, California, where we've spent a lot of time growing up. I'm Ed Philbrick, and I'm joined by Kurt Stockton and Darren Stockton. What are the vibes here in Carpinteria, California?
Dude, the vibes are great in Carpinteria, California. I can tell you, as I've been living here for 6 years, and the vibes are good weather we're having, summer weather, great riding, low key, not a lot of packed in traffic. It's awesome.
Yeah, I would say that summer weather here is quite pleasant. It's been in the low to mid 70s every day. Slight breeze, a lot of sunshine. Well, that's why
Great,
people live on the Central Coast.
great riding weather. What's
Yeah.
your take on the vibes, Ed?
Well, we did a great ride. We did two of them actually on the Carpinteria Bluffs and then behind Summerland, Ortega area, areas that have quite an extensive network of trails, horseback trails. But Aaron led the way, and we looped around the Carpinteria Bluffs under the eucalyptus trees on areas that were preserved. We zipped through town a couple of times, and the trails back behind Ortega and Summerland, those weren't really there in the time of Summerland cycles, which was the late 80s, early 90s. We used to go out there and see if we could demo mountain bikes, and probably early mountain bikes suspension hadn't quite come.
Right?
And those trails were pockmarked with horses or kind of adobe style clay. We didn't really experience that yesterday. We kind of floated around through the orange groves and up and around Summerland. I'm pretty tired.
Yeah. Yeah, truth be told, our plan was to record this podcast yesterday after we rode, but we were all too flogged out after riding yesterday. So we agreed to fall back and do it today. So that's good, though.
Yeah.
All of our legs were blasted, which is an awesome day.
Well, and it was great that we actually got out to ride together, and we ended up being out about 4 hours, I think. And
Yeah.
the last time we rode together was back in February when we were at the Rock Cobbler. So it's been a little while. We're at the end of July now. So, wow, got to cherish those moments when we're together and riding. So that was really cool to be able to do a little bit more of that.
Yeah, and the three of us have ridden together. We were trying to do some loose calculations, but, in the tens of thousands of miles together over our lifetime, more when we were younger because we all grew up here and were riding road bikes and, and did that before we moved separate ways. But it's pretty fun going out and just riding with people who you just know their riding styles and trust them. You're not worried if they're going to do anything squirrely. That's a great part of riding for the three of us. And also my buddy Jonah was out with us yesterday as well, who's also another great low-key ride partner. For me, I know my life is so packed and tight and busy that the last thing I need to do if I'm just waking up and doing a ride on my own time on a day with no clients or anything where I feel like stressed and rushed. So it's kind of nice when we have a low-key ride that we get up and we're like, hey, we're shooting to leave by this time, but if it rolls a little bit later, it's not a big deal. So that's another fun part of me for doing the rides with us. None of us are so stressed out about it that that we're sticking to a specific timeline or anything.
Yeah, and then we had the ultimate urban gravel tour of the Carpinteria Summerland area, and so
Yeah.
even that you get out and you get on these cool little trails and these connectors and all this stuff, but you're never too far from anything, too. Right? So we got to the point where like, yeah, we go back to the studio. Jonah was a little bit hungry. Well, hey, we can stop and get a snack really quickly. We're right there, but we're
Yeah.
not too far from the riding. It's like you don't have to deviate from your program too much, which was really cool.
Yeah, you're never way out if something happens. I think the furthest we ever were yesterday was about 20 minutes, 25 minutes from being back at my shop.
Yeah, it was really cool to see the prosperity of Carpinteria. Like, we stopped at a health food store. Jonah had a quinoa wrap and $6.99 chocolate balls, and
That he handed out.
That were worth every penny we deduced.
and there was a gentleman playing his kazoo and his ukulele in an outfit. And Carpinteria is thriving. There's new businesses, and we went to another, well, I don't know, it was Honey Coffee
Santa
Shop,
Barbara Hives.
Santa Barbara Hives. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was great.
Yeah.
Carpinteria's had its times of a rusty pizza chain and not much else going on, and the
Yeah.
Frosty Freeze that's gone.
Yeah, it's great to see that side of it, really pick up in all the shops, like you were saying. One of the ride areas that we started off in out on the Carpinteria Bluffs, the very uppermost area of that is this area, we still call it Thunderbowl, which used to be called Thunderbowl way back, and we went out and rode our dirt bikes out there. So it used to kind of be our bootleg riding area, and so it's kind of cool when I go out there on my gravel bike, and all of us yesterday, but I go out and ride, I'm hitting the same rollers and jumps on my gravel bike today that I was doing on my YZ125 with the Bob Hurricane Hannah seat on it back in like the 70s, actually, early 80s, I think was probably maybe the last time we ever rode out there. So it's just pretty fun for me to see an area that I've ridden out there with my friends over the years. They had a race series for a while, the Avocado Pit Dirt Crit out there, which I competed in, a little local series. And so it's just fun to know that that riding area has morphed over the years and has actually been bought by the Nature Conservancy in Carpinteria, so it can never be developed, those trails forever, which is really nice.
Well, yeah, and another good thing too is the wind that comes up off those bluffs. You get the kite sailors out there.
Yeah,
right. It's an ultimate like where we're riding right at the top, which used to be the top of Thunderbowl, like where you'd go park and stuff when you took your moto out there with a kid. Now people go up there and they basically fly right off of there on their kites and just sail back and forth. Yeah, if you're ever coming up 101, coming into Rincon there, oftentimes, especially in the afternoon when the wind's up a little more, you see people flying out there. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah,
and thinking about that, I laughed as we were riding along the train tracks yesterday. I remember we used to go to Thunderbowl, and then we're like, hey, you can get down to the train tracks, and then we could like scoot north or scoot toward town a little bit and go ride that other part of Thunderbowl where that driving range is now, which we weren't supposed to ride at, but we're like, well, if anybody chases you, you can always just get down to the train tracks and escape them. So
that was a sandy track over there where the driving range is now. It went in and out of the eucalyptus trees. That's right. I couldn't even forgot about that. All the riding along there.
And then it sounded like someone was having a heavy metal concert there yesterday.
It was fun to do the hot laps through. We kind of looped around. We took some photos and video and so forth, and we saw all the key elements. There's Rincon. There's the Clean Sea Pier, which comes from the 1972 oil spill, and the oil companies put together a consortium where they all had to chip in and pay to keep the oil spills under control. And a gentleman named Rick Gill, who we all grew up, ran that operation. We went by that. We went by tar pits, which really is a tar pit. Jonah put his S-Fire Shimano shoes in the tar pit, which I thought was great because I tried really hard to avoid it, but he's the local and so he should know that tar pit. He hit it. Ruined his shoes.
Both of his shoes.
His shoes were tarred and feathered, or tarred and leaved, whatever you want to say.
And sanded, yeah. He was pretty not pleased with that.
Yeah, so we did the tar pits, and then we rode through the campground, and I was like, wow, the campground is thriving.
Yeah, State Beach.
We rode the bike trail on the north end of town. We all grew up as kids around Santa Claus Lane, and some people might remember Santa Claus Lane. It is gone. It's quite bougie and fancy, but there's a spectacular bike path on the north end of town headed towards Summerland, past where Bill Clinton spent his first nights as an inaugurated president or about to be president. So there's just like a lot of history that we passed through. And we rode behind Summerland Cycles, where we all tested early mountain bikes, which I started our story about.
Yeah, the old MB1s we had. Well, I'm curious for the you two, if you had to pick out like one stoke of doing the gravel riding, because it's all pretty new terrain for all of you. For me, obviously, I've been riding this stuff for several years now. I'm riding around. I kind of found all these trails during COVID, during lockdown, and I was just looking for places to ride that I could ride from the home and start exploring all of these. And then Jonah, actually, his sister, Bettina, was big in the equestrian side of things. There's a lot of horse property and horse riding properties up there, and so he knew a lot of trails that he had found from her, and we kind of had our meeting of the minds at one point, and I'm like, check out all the stuff out on the bluffs, and he's like, dude, we got to go behind Summerland, look at all these new trails. And it really blew my mind out there riding on all those. But I'll say for me, my biggest stoke is showing friends new trails. You know, so it was cool for me to have you guys out there and really dig in and show you all the trails and stuff that Jonah and I ride on all the time. And I'll go out during the wintertime because the dirt doesn't really hold up in the summertime if you try and dig it or do anything. But in the wintertime when there's good rain, I'll go out there with my shovel and build some features, a few little, you know, a little kicker to jump down something or a little berm to blast. So it's fun for us to get out there. It was for me, and show you guys my trail. So that's my biggest stoke for me of having you guys riding here, is getting to show you new areas to ride on. So I don't know what your guys' biggest stoke was about the ride.
I would say it's a toss-up between doing repeat circuits out at Thunderbowl. Yeah, because when Ed and I were riding with you and John, I were like, okay, so we just did this one, or we did it 2 times or 3 times or 5 times, and then like you guys, we go off the first little drop and through the first corner, and you're out of sight. I'm like, oh, these guys have only done this like 700 times, you know? So that's pretty cool. And then I always still marvel at the connectors off of Toro Canyon that get you over to Ortega Hill on dirt the entire time. I mean, yeah, there's some access roads for some of the properties there, you know, through the orchards. And it's really cool how they have the trail network, you know, basically along the property lines that I think, to your point, where you're saying, DS, that, you know, the equestrian crew had put that stuff in, but they are multi-use. So, you know, you're watching out for rocks and you're watching out for piles of horse crap at the same time, you know? So you got features or, you know, things to get around. But that just cool, and just how much is right there that, you know, Highway 101's, a few hundred yards or a quarter mile away, and you just don't even know it. So that part's both of those, very cool.
What about you, Ed?
For me, it's riding along the ocean and staying cool. Like, you know, you can ride Torrey Pines on the paved road. You can ride in Laguna maybe on some trails, but where in Southern California, except for moving to Central Pismo, can you ride overlooking the ocean? We took some really great photos with the ocean in the background. And then at the same time, it's a little bit like Valencia, Spain. We were riding through orange or lemon groves, and then all of a sudden we pop out and we're on a manicured polo ground, you know, that was like, looked like lawn bowling. It was smooth.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it was fun, and all the locals were friendly, and it's not very ridden. Like if that was San Diego or Orange County, there would have been 50 cyclists, and we ran into one gentleman and he goes, those bikes are not supposed to be off-road. And then a little later in town in Carpinteria, he was sitting in a restaurant and goes, oh, it's you guys again.
Yeah. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Saw that guy.
Small town.
Yeah. Well,
So
cool.
it's just really good to be back all together in person. We were roommates here in Carpinteria at the Franciscan Village during our racing days.
That's right.
We did some circuit racing inside the complex on tandems and other non-essential bicycles.
Yeah.
So rounding out kind of a theme of our podcast is technology and bike tech. And so we're going to have like a weekly service course tech tip. And I thought we would talk a little bit about something that litters the internet and Instagram and your ads. And there must be 50 products out there right now, these little electronic pumps.
Yeah.
So I ordered mine. I think I paid $165 from Silka. Sorry for mispronouncing it. I always mispronounce it. And it has a gauge. It's interesting. So we both were sort of testing them yesterday and over the last 2 days. It works great on road tires for me. You know, you set the pressure, you want 60 PSI, and it clicks off at that PSI ideally. But what we're finding is that clogged valves kind of give erroneous click-offs, and so it thinks it's reached a pressure that it hasn't. They're super loud, and they get hot.
Very loud.
I was going to turn mine on.
Sounds like a weed whacker or something, right?
So mine is not quite as loud as
a little two-stroke
KS's.
Yeah.
I kind of give up when I'm doing my mountain bike tires. I think it's just not getting the PSI that I'm trying to reach 25 or 30 PSI, and I'm clicking off at 17, at 20. my road tires, like I said, it goes perfectly to 60 or 65 or whatever I'm after. Um, and rounding out the conversation on this product was coming to market, heavily advertised, and then they decided it wasn't going to be in the U.S. because of the tariffs. So there was very few that ever hit the market. Well, then 2 months later, it did hit the market, maybe at a higher price. Um, I don't know. What are your experiences with yours, Kaz?
So I have the Presticycle Prestiflator Go, which I think it launched about the same time last spring. I think maybe late February into March, and I was out at the Philly Bike Expo in March, and Presticycle had a booth there, and I saw that thing, and I was like, I'd kind of heard about these things. I've seen a couple on Kickstarter. I was riding out with when I was doing stuff at the Hoppers. Lance Hydet was out there, and he had one that was like a Kickstarter one. I'm like, what is that, dude? And he goes, check it out. And pumped up someone's tire with it. Oh, it's not available yet, and we'll do it. And this one came out, and so I was like, I saw it at the Philly Bike Expo, and I go, that's actually pretty cool, and it's small enough that I can throw it in my pocket, and I wouldn't use it as a replacement. I mean, we'll talk about what we carry with us. This is something that I do carry with me. It doesn't hit hard enough, like if your tire debeads, but it's great for filling up. I mean, the only thing that I found is that it tends to read a little bit low. So, like, I have another gauge that I check my tires with, and I have a pump that has a gauge on it. And if I set my tire at 20, I put this thing at 25. It's actually at 27 on my other ones, but that's pretty easy if it's 2 psi off. I don't know which one is actually correct, but you can just adjust because it's more important that you use the same gauge rather than...
That's it.
Right? For consistency versus, I always got to have a certain PSI. Well, if you're changing gauges around, you don't know if those gauges are consistent. So I enjoy the thing. I do put it, I have a little bag that I put it in when I put it in my pocket because I find that when you're route riding, it does get some moisture just from sweating because it's up against your back. But so far so good. And it's pretty cool. It uses their head here, and then that thing, it does thread out. So it can be smaller. But if you're familiar with Presticycle and the stuff they do, they've got a bunch of interchangeability. I have no affiliation with Presticycle other than my friend Dan Large is an ambassador, and he did give me a discount code for a purchase, so I did purchase it, and it seems pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it does. It has a digital gauge. I'm not going to turn it on because, as I mentioned, it's louder than the one he had, which they're plenty loud. So just take our word on it on that. But right, so we both have one, DS not. But then that got us thinking, like, okay, well, what do you carry? Like, right? We used to always have a frame pump, right? And then pumps got smaller, and then CO2s, and that was just triathletes. But what do you got in your kit, DS?
Yeah.
What do you carry with you? Not only the
What's
ride kit. Yeah.
What's in my bag? So I'll bring up what I have in my bag, and it's funny, which also brings up another topic about what's in your bag. Is it's good to periodically check what's in your bag, because when I checked mine today, I realized I was missing my 11-speed quick link, which if you break a chain out there, but I have a spare tube, a vinyl tube, Panaracer one. I have my Pro multi-tool, which this one I've found is great. I don't remember the model of it, but it has a chain brake on it, which is really nice, and it fits in. It has all the Allen keys that you need, Torx and everything, so I have that. I have a single tire lever. I love these Park ones with the plastic and then the little metal tip on there. I find these are great. You can get it in and move it around.
They don't break when you're in
They don't break.
Yeah,
Never ever broken one. I do put I have a little mini pump inside of there, so if I have an issue and my quick fill can't fix it, or you run out of quick fills or something, which will happen sometimes if you flat a tubeless and you try and plug it, and then you're filling up with air, and for some reason it doesn't beat up, you could find yourself out of quick fill. So I always have this mini pump, and I bought this one because it would fit inside my Explorer seat pack. Now I have on my Mondraker bike, it has in-tube storage, so I was able to get rid of my pack, which I'm really stoked about. But this little mini one would fit in my pack, so I didn't have to carry it in my pocket. And then I have a quick fill And the inflator, this is a 20 gram. So I get a couple uses out of it. Oops, sorry about that microphone. And then my last one, I have a, this is a lasagna plug, the bacon strip, so that thing unscrews, and have some extras in there. I have one preloaded, so if you get the flat, you know, you can put it right in there. And so that, and then the last two, like I said, I didn't have my quick link in there, which I'll have to remember to go down and get one. I don't know if it fell out or I forgot to put one in when I had my new bike, my quick link, and there was one other one. Oh, and then the last one is, you know, we used to carry, like for road bikes, a little boot, a piece of tire, because if you get a big slash in your tire, you can boot it. But I've found over the years that a good old-fashioned American dollar bill works the best. But I normally put 2 singles in my toolkit, and I didn't have those in there either, but I do have a backup 20 I always carry with me with my insurance card. So if you do get a slash that's too big to fix, you can line the inside of that with a dollar bill or whatever you might have at the moment. 20 is a little pricey, but, you know, so that's what's in my kit.
Yeah, well, I would say that, and that boot's super important, right? Because if you get a hole that you can't plug, then you got to put a tube in, but you can't have the tube poking back out, or else...
Yeah, 100%.
You're doing a lot of walking.
Yeah. All right, Ed, what's in your bag, baby?
So we kind of thought of this topic. I was telling the story about I got a flat the other day, and I got back to the brewery, and everyone was talking about it, and I just hauled out my bag, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what's really in there.
Yeah.
As DS mentioned, it's always a good idea to take a look. So I have a Bontrager lightweight multi-tool. This is for my road bike, by the way. I have 2 Continental tire levers. I have a Tubelito. Always good to check. Make sure you have the correct length valve. Nothing worse than being on the side of the road and your valve isn't quite long enough.
That's a long valve. This must be your road seat pack, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got my Dynaplug.
Tubeless fixer, for those who don't know what it is. Tubeless plug.
Yep. $65 tubeless plug. I have 2 CO2s. I wrap them in duct tape in case the duct tape might help with something. And it cuts down on the rattling. I'm big on cutting down on the noise. Then here's my lightweight. I don't know who makes it.
Inflator head.
I'm sure that I purchased this based on weight.
Yeah.
Wait.
Topic for another call.
Nice.
What I noticed was there's no dollar bill, which is not a good idea. There's no chain link. I do have my air tag, but I'm not even sure how, air tags don't last forever, so I'm not sure even if it's activated. And then I keep everything in a pretty small, almost air bag.
It's pretty svelte.
Because I don't like my large thighs dragging on my seat bag and tearing up my shorts.
Right.
Yeah.
How about you, Kaz?
Well, what you guys have. I mean, I'm looking at my stuff here. I carry 2 tubes. The vinyl types. I do have Tubelitos. I would add one little thing. I take mine and I put them in a little Ziploc to protect them from the elements if you're riding, especially in the winter. But also, you can find when stuff, you were talking about like the CO2s rattling. If they rattle around, you get that aluminum dust. It just keeps these tubes clean, because if not, and they're very, they can, last thing you need is to pull it out and not have it hold air. Of course, I do have a multi-tool. It's a Crank Brothers. It may be very well from, and I don't care about weight. This may very well be from the Crank Brothers sponsorship, the Sierra Nevada team days, which was like a couple decades ago. But, it still works.
Testament to the tool.
Testament to the tool, absolutely. Folds down small. I do carry a boot. We were talking yesterday, or I was in DS's studio, like, what's the use of a 700 by 23 tire anymore? Well, if you have any laying around, you can cut a section out and take cut the bead out, and that's something that comes in handy if you have to tube a tubeless tire. I do have a separate little chain breaker because I don't have one on the multi-tool. I do have a spare link in there, a speed link. I don't bother to carry a CO2 CO2s when I ride because I have that, especially once I got the Prestaflator, I'm like, okay, I've got that for more effortless plugging up. But I carry a larger pump that goes onto the frame. I like this Lezyne one. The biggest feature with this is it's got a hose that threads in, right? So the hose threads in when you air it up, but it's nice because it flexes, so you don't. Oftentimes you can break. Nothing worse than breaking off a tubeless valve, which you can do that, or more often sometimes you can just break the insert of the valve itself, and it has a little bleeder valve on it too, which is cool. So when you air it up, you can bleed off pressure. So I always carry the frame pump as just something extra to have, like DS mentioned, a backup. And then separately, I still ride with my phone, and so I got this a phone case that I ride with. In that little thing, keep the insurance card. I ride. So just dropped it. I ride SRAM, so I always carry a spare CR2032 battery, and then a quarter in there, so I can turn the battery cover off and not wreck it. Always smart to carry your insurance card if you have it. Yeah. If you live where there's poison oak, a little Tech-Nu wipe. If you need to wipe the poison oak contact off, that's always
make for a much level there,
better not the other level. Then of course I keep my house key is in there on a tether, so I can get into my basement after ride. So this thing is nice. It has it's this company Bellroy out of Australia, full waterproof zip on it. Phone fits in there. I've had previous versions of this once where I went over the bars. The phone bag was all scratched up and the phone survived. So yeah.
Here.
That's it. Yeah. So that's the carry there.
Nice. So that's a good stash. Maybe for a future one, we'll have to put them all on a scale and see how much actual weight we carry. Not that I'm too much of a weight weenie, but it is always interesting. You add a few things here, a few things there, and you can feel the weight.
When we were talking earlier about, we all started with a lot heavier stuff on our bikes and bigger bags. I had a Kirkland bag with a metal rack that held the bag, and then the elastic went down to the fork to stabilize the bag. So, and now, a lot of us are storing stuff in a SWAT box or down tube storage, and probably most every bike brand has that nowadays. But it's also like how quickly you can get to some of this stuff when you need it. Like those SWAT boxes, you can be hunting around in there. I was laughing because I pulled a hunting permit so that if I'm ever riding Bowden Canyon and I have that permit stuffed in my SWAT box. So like, even though I probably shouldn't be riding, I'll have the permit there might help me a little bit with my argument.
Right.
So
you have a legal right to be out there, even though you're just like hunting with your bare hands, basically.
I probably should be walking my bike, carrying my rifle, but
yeah. Well, that's good.
And that reminds me too. One thing I didn't put there. You have that Dynaplug there. I actually have on my current build. I got the Dynaplug bar ends. So we don't have the bike sitting right here, but it's pretty cool. Each bar end. It's a little insert that you put into your handlebar, and then the Dynaplug, the plug holder, threads into each of the bar ends. So I've got 2 plugs in each bar end. We were talking about how you're talking about access to getting this stuff.
Right.
I think the most important thing for quick access is getting a plug, because even if you can get your thumb over the hole, so it's not shooting out all the air and all the sealant, you still have to be able to access your plug. And if it's like buried somewhere, it kind of defeats the purpose. And that was a tip I got from a guy I worked with who does a bunch of these, I'm just doing a 1,500 kilometer race with no sleep type of thing. But they're racing for time, and he says he had his Dynaplug mounted right on the top of his handlebars, or right on his top tube somewhere. So like if he got it, he instantly could grab it and use it. So if time is of the essence, or just getting that flat repaired quicker rather than being out there for a while goofing with it, that's one thing to consider is how quickly you can access. And I think the most important thing, especially in the days of tubeless, is being able to access that plug.
Yeah, that's it. So you can get the plug in and save your air in there and get it sealed up. That's less pumping that you have to do. And yeah, that's a good tip, the easy access.
And even though it does sound like we're doing a lot, all you people who haven't gone to tubeless yet, you got to go tubeless. it's a game changer.
Yeah.
Right up there with clipless pedals and
Yeah. I have to
shifters
agree
and
on that
levers.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
So, one thought just crossed my mind when I was walking the pits at Sea Otter. You could see how all the pros mount their bacon strips on their brake lines.
Right.
It,
Just stick them.
the specialized pros had them because they don't have internal routing yet. They had their bacon strips stuck to their brake lines on the external. Um, and then like you were talking about, people putting their dyno plugs in different locations. And I also saw that a lot of the riders are using both bacon strips and dyno plugs there, or doing two different techniques.
Uh-huh.
I guess the next subject was the Tour de France, everyone's favorite topic this time of year, but we thought we'd take a little bit different take on it and talk a little bit about some of the tour fashion, colors, jerseys, the style that we're seeing out there. What are you seeing, DS?
Yeah, well, we're talking about, how much of accessorizing your jersey. If you're in a tour leader's jersey, right, you've got the yellow, the green, the polka dot, and then the white. How different people run it. Like, do you go full, if you're in yellow, are you full yellow top to bottom? Or do you just do traditional yellow jersey with black shorts? Or do you mix it up? And so I think it depends a little bit on a case-by-case basis. Like sometimes I'll think the polka dot, if you're top and bottom on the polka dot, that can maybe be a bit much because it's white, and I'm not a big fan of white shorts necessarily. The yellow, I think I think in UAE, they do a pretty good job on it. They have nice highlights on the bikes, different things like that. And so I tend to like them to go for it a little bit, even though I definitely have a traditional look on it. Like I don't mind a black short, but if it has some bands, or even seeing guys in the full yellow or the green, I think top and bottom looks okay, but the polka dots might be a bit much if you're fully polka dotted. Then it depends on, do you do socks? Do you have your matching shades? Do you do it? But I like it all. It changes it up, It's a different opportunity for us to see the different sponsors' gear. So I like it.
What do you think about if you don't have the jersey, but it's on loan to you because you're in second, and
Right.
Tata is going to wear yellow, and Martinez is going to wear the polka dot that day, so he
Right.
isn't really rightfully the owner of it. Do you think he should have polka dot socks on that day?
I think if you got the jersey on, it's your right to do whatever you want with it. Accessorize to your heart's delight, bedazzle, put earrings, do everything. Sorry, I'm wrestling with our Carpinteria afternoon wind out here a little bit. I say go for it. Now, whether or not I like it or not is separate answer from that. But I think if you got the jersey on, whether you're in it or it's on loan, you can run it however you want. That's my take.
And I think it's just a brilliant marketing piece from the ASO.
Right.
Now that they have with the clothing sponsors, they're making the kits, they're literally sewing them up for the individual riders based on their measurements. It's not like the old days where they just had a jersey and stuck a sticker on it. So there's a lot more room for that, but you can also see that the teams plan ahead, with their helmets, or a computer company are doing that. DSU brought up Lenny Martinez. I thought that the way that Bahrain Victorious did his kit was super tasteful, in that he had his team shorts, but they did the leg bands with the polka dots, and then he had the gloves and the helmet and the socks and all that. I thought it actually looked pretty good. Sometimes for me, even you're talking about white, right? Like world champion, Van der Poel rocked a lot of white, a lot of Kopecky rocked a lot of white, and Pogacar when he was in the world championship stripes. I am not a fan of the white shorts. And then it's interesting, you look at Tim Miller in the European champion jersey racing. It's got the bands across the chest, but it's kind of hard to tell between him and the young rider jersey. Where you see with other teams, they make them not. You can't wear it. Visma doesn't wear yellow, right? EF doesn't wear pink during the Giro because it clashes with one of those jerseys. And just one more thing on that, I would argue that when 4 years ago, when the green jersey went to that, like a darker, the Skoda green, or I don't know what it was, I still liked it when it was that brighter green.
The bright
It was a
green.
few years ago. Yeah, I think maybe when Wild Van Art won green, it was a brighter green. It was more of like a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale green that just popped a bit more.
Yeah.
I did like I do like the metallic finishes that Trek's doing on their bikes. Milan's like green reflective bike. I think that looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then when is too much too much? What do you guys think about Ben Healy, man? When he came out in yellow, it was like, it was everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if he had yellow bottles on his bike as well, but it was like, holy moly, man.
A little too
Giant
much
lemon
yellow
drop.
for you, Cass?
Just a little, yeah. But I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I
that's
think-
just personal preference.
Yeah, that's everybody's style, right? I think I've seen some kits that even though it seems like it may have more items, for some reason it ties together a little better, and then other people it seems like it's just more color is their only idea with it. You know, not necessarily the style of it, but I think it's a little bit on a case by case, you know, depending on how they rock it.
I don't think that I saw actually the Instagram videos or social videos of Ben Healy's yellow Cannondale arriving in a Porsche, which I'm like surprised he wasn't arriving in a Cadillac, which I think is an amazing sponsor for that team, by the way. Um, but you know, the other thing I was thinking about a little on the jersey colors is I feel like I remember something in the Giro or something where sometimes somebody doesn't necessarily want to be in the white that day because they'd rather wear their fancy custom designed skin suit versus the event sponsor, the race sponsor's skin suit. So, you know, if they know the time trial is coming up, they might back down on their white jersey standing or one of their standings so that they can wear their own super special suit for the time trial. Um, the tour suits, you know, they look pretty sophisticated, but I'm not quite sure how all that works. I know that, you know, Lance brought Nike on to the tour so he could wear Nike the suit that was special for him, but
Yeah, I think for time trials especially, just because you're in that mode, like you can see a guy when he's on his time trial bike and he's in his position going and something about it doesn't look comfortable. He's like shifts in the seat real quick, you know, wiggles his legs a little bit, shifts the chamois. I think for the skin suits, it's probably just the comfortable feel and the familiar feel. If you're used to your team shorts and how they ride and sit, the last thing you want to do is like time trialing for the yellow jersey and have the chamois riding up in your crotch or being uncomfortable. One less thing to think about.
Yeah. Well, and then that brings us back to, you know, you had said you heard something about that bike being delivered special there. You know, I think the original Tour de France fashionista, you know, back to Cannondale, was it Cipollini? He was like the guy in all yellow, right? Yellow bike, the Cannondale. I think he wore yellow shorts and got fined because back then you could only wear black shorts.
Yeah.
And that was brilliant. Like, yeah, we'll pay the fine every day because it was bringing that publicity. But I think, you know, love him or hate him, I mean, the guy, he definitely brought some showmanship to cycling that wasn't there before. And I mean,
he brought mousse to race day, hair mousse to race day.
Yeah. Well, sure, it was a special mix, a little mousse, a little gel. Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely the flair of that. Yeah, like I said, I think it's good, man. If you're good enough to get in any jersey of any tour at any time, any grand tour, then you should be celebrated because that is, you know, that's a career accomplishment. I mean, somebody like Tade, I think he's about to break the record or maybe did this tour for total number of days in any jersey combined. But, you know, for anybody, that's still amazing to even have one day in a jersey. So I say, man, if you earn that right to put it on, then, you know, you get to juice it up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just all opinion. It's just like black shorts or colored shorts, you know? For me, I said, I don't, any colored shorts are fine as long as they're black. Yeah. And maybe navy. Especially in the rain.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
I notice also some of the like, you know, Tade might have a yellow computer, for example. I'm not sure I've seen him with a yellow Wahoo, but just say he does. He might, you know, later in the season still be riding with that yellow computer. It's just a little reminder, like, you know, I was in yellow this summer and I still have my yellow computer on my bike. It's kind of like a subtle little, nice little marketing, you know.
Yeah, I
Just
like
a
that.
friendly reminder to his competitors about how he just throttled everybody.
Yeah, that's right. Just don't forget that
Yeah.
beating that you took.
So what about you're speaking of Pogacar, Ed. What about the pink glasses? Seems like he's always got those high vis pink glasses going on.
Yeah, I know that brand, whatever it is, it just doesn't speak to me. I can't vibe with his pink shades and that brand. And like when he's on the podium and it has the logo, I'm sure Oakley probably does the bold logo for the podium shots, but just keep it subtle. You know, we all know what brand it is. We know. Don't shout at us. You know, so I just like the subtleties and the subtle marketing of sunglasses, and I get like a little turned off by Tade's shades.
If there's only one thing maybe you could fault him for, Tade, it's
Yeah,
the
that's
shades.
just preference, though. You know, I remember like helmets and sunglasses are the most coveted piece of material in the rider because anytime they're shooting the rider's face, you
Yeah.
see the helmet and you see the glasses. So that that makes the most sense. That was going off on a little tangent, but I like it. It tells how much money Red Bull must have put into that team that Specialized gave up prime logo space on their helmets for the Red Bull logo on the helmet because
Yeah.
they've always really done well with their logo placement and that's the whole thing. I mean, you remember Specialized did glasses for a while because they didn't want to give up to Oakley or Bollet or whoever it was because the shots are always of the rider's head. So, I think it's a constant battle there. But a lot of interesting stuff for sure.
Well, KS, you bring up the logos. When Specialized rider's got his head down, the S is straight on the top of the helmet, looking straight at you. You'll notice the S is on the thigh of each short, straight at the camera.
Yeah.
And then if they win, it's on the backside of the front, the palm of the gloves. If they're wearing gloves, I'm always surprised at how many young riders aren't wearing gloves anymore. I know it's cooling and that your hands represent an area that you want to keep cool to keep your body temperature, core temperature down, but there's some marketing on those gloves when you raise them in victory.
And there's protection when you go down.
Yeah.
Because, we have seen a couple of crashes. I'm pretty surprised that there aren't more riders having problems when they crash without gloves on because there's nothing. I think I crashed without gloves once when I was probably 15 or 16 years old, and it was like having burns on your hand, and you couldn't hold on to the handlebars, let alone ride on a bumpy road. So,
Yeah.
to each their own.
And when you're bringing up the logo placement and it's showing up on the TV screen, my time in professional golf was to calculate for the sponsors how many impressions the name on the hat was going to get.
Right.
And how valuable the hat was. And the bag was secondary in value. And so I would prepare these reports to try and solicit sponsors for the professional golfers that we were working with. It would just show the number of impressions. And so that Specialized S on the top of the helmet when the head's down is, that's a lot of impressions on screens around the world and now on social media.
Yeah, they do of all the, and I noticed that same thing on the helmet, and even afterwards, after the finish, I would say that they do probably the best job of just having a easy, clear, recognizable logo that's in the right spot on their clothing. How they affix it. What are the areas that they've obviously checked it out, been in the studio, looked at different camera angles, checked video, and see the areas that show up more often, and definitely put their logos right there. They do a great job at that.
And they've done a great job of keeping that lightning bolt S logo too, the paint mark S.
Yeah.
But it's like that's part of it is that brand recognition, like the swoosh of Nike, or that same cursive Coca-Cola or whatever it is, or just the iconic apple with a bite out of it. It is brand recognition, and they do a great job at that.
Yeah.
It was fun this weekend sitting around watching the tour with you guys, and including with your mom. That was a lot of fun for me. She'd be like, "Oh, what jersey is that?" And so one of the things that we all noticed is that MAP is now in cycling, and they're the Alula sponsor for the Australian team, and you got the French teams kind of all looking the same, and Lidl Trek really pops. They pop out on the screen. They remind us all of Via Claire in the 80s and 90s. It really stands out on the screen, and it's there's a lot at play with the color and the style and how bold the jersey is. You guys have any comments on the jerseys you like or what speaks to you?
I noticed the one that I thought was interesting. We were talking about the Israel Premier Tech jersey. And when they're coming for you and down, you know, it's got a yellow and red. And I noticed that one side of it was yellow and the other shoulder was red. And it reminded me of
yellow with
no, the Israel Premier Tech.
Yellow on theirs?
Did I say yellow? Oh, my bad. Blue.
Blue.
Sorry, and red. My mistake. Yeah, the Israel Premier Tech blue and red make the point. And when they're bent over, you see, you know, and coming at you, you see like a red shoulder and a blue shoulder. And it reminded me of the look of the old Motorola jerseys, which were red and blue. And interestingly enough, Steve Bauer, who raced on Motorola, is the director of the Israel Premier Tech. So I don't know if that was just by chance or he thought red and blue was good and offered that opinion in. But that was something that I noticed about it. I tend to like a little bit more of like, I guess maybe the trends of the jerseys have done it where there were like ombre fades and all sorts of different things before, and then it comes back around. Jayco's is a bit more, you know, like patterned, but I tend to like stuff that's a little more solid colored would probably be my only preference, you know, that where the colors are and in the jersey that you can identify them pretty quick, so that you can tell, you know, who the riders are from the helicopter shot or wherever.
Yeah, as I'm saying, a helicopter shot versus a head-on shot versus a side shot. I find that the more, the easier it is to see. You know, interesting, when I first like had to design a race team jersey for the 2004 Sierra Nevada team, and I was like, oh, what colors I do, you know, and I was working with Joe Parkin when he was at Castelli and back and forth, and I was like, why don't I just talk to the photographers? And so I remember talking to Casey Gibson. I'm like, hey, Casey, what do you look for? Like, what colors stick out and what do you look for when you take a shot? You know, and we did that first jersey and it was in that pale ale green. And that's what I said. I said, if you can pick a jersey out easily through your viewfinder or from a distance, are you going to shoot that? And he said, yeah. So that was kind of, you know, something I did, you know, very unscientific, but at the same time, you know, we got a lot of shots, or it showed up in a lot of shots. If you see the whole gamut of, you know, big peloton shot from the side or even from the front, what sticks out sponsor-wise, because the commentators are going to also call that stuff out as well. So there's a lot with it going on. But I'm similar with UDS. I like the blocks and the harder lines versus the fades. You know, I've done both of those in jerseys. And it seems like it goes through phases. It seems like for a while everyone had a blue jersey.
Yeah.
You know? And now it's kind of gone away. But
yeah, we know that everyone's trying. We know everyone's trying to match their sponsor, and so little Trek stores probably look. You know, the sign looks just like the jersey, and so they're lucky that it also pops on TV. We all commented. We looked at the Red Bull jerseys this summer, and they look like candy stripers or a lollipop or wrapper. I mean, I don't understand it. It doesn't speak Red Bull to me. I know that they want the helmet to still pop because they still have a lot of brand identity around their helmet, but they just look like candy stripers. They weren't strong, and it's not bold enough. But maybe when Remco arrives, he'll have his design input.
Yeah, we'll find out August 1st.
Yeah, man, that's like the Grinch that stole Christmas. Every time I see that jersey, it's like those little peppermint candies that you know, with the little cellophane twist thing that sit at the doctor's office. Is like, yeah, I don't know. That one is definitely strange. It kind of reminds me of like a club team trying to make a pro jersey with someone that thinks they're a designer. I think probably of all the jerseys, that's my least favorite. You know, not having really thought of it until right now, but again, just opinion. Tell us what you think in the comments. You never know. Everyone has an opinion, right? And the internet's a great place to be somewhat anonymous.
Yeah,
if that's what you want.
So we have an idea for a new weekly segment that DS is going to kick off because he's going to really drive it home with his story. So tell us the new segment, DS.
All right, so we'll take you back. We're racing the Tour DuPont, which for those of you who don't know that race, it was a predecessor to like the Tour of California. Not the same company, but it was our national stage race. You know, it was like a 10-day stage race on the East Coast. 1992, Phil was on Motorola. Phil Anderson. It's another interjection of a Phil Anderson story, but you'll hear why. So we're a couple days from the finish. I can't remember exactly what stage, but we took off. And, you know, in context, the European pros would come over and race a race like that with the U.S. pro teams. Of course, because they were from Europe, they always thought that they were more of the top dogs. They would, kind of try and police the pack a little bit, or, when maybe you're setting tempo or not, and kind of interject their flavor, which rightly so, they did know a bit more. And so this one specific stage we start out, and it wasn't like a technical neutral start, but we started in some small East Coast town, and we were kind of like rolling out through town, left and right and left and right. And we came into this one section that like came in, and there was like a little town square with a park in the middle. And so the center was like four-sided, and it had hedges all the way around, and the road was on the outside, but it also had hedges on the other side. So we came in, I think we turned in and made a right, and then went a left, and we're riding along, and everybody's just kind of like cruising, taking it easy. And all of a sudden the Russian national team, one guy on the Russian national team, like goes for the attack and just comes flying up the inside of the pack to clear it before making this tight corner. But it was like not even a normal size road around the park. It seemed a little bit narrower, and he goes flying through the corner and just misses the corner and up against the hedge and high sides and like flips over the hedge. So he like disappears over, and we're all like, what? And Phil rides up and just pulls over, sits up, hand on the top, and just shaking his hand like in good Italian, and he just goes, Ama-Teur, like that. And we were just all cracking up. And so when I was thinking about some type of a segment, I thought that we have a new segment, which is called the Ama-Teur segment. And of course, if you bring up an amateur move, you have to say the Ama-Teur with some real flair. So if we see something that seems like a bit of an amateur move, we're going to have to call out the Ama-Teur move. Yeah, so that's the segment. I have my first one that I'm going to nominate. As we were watching the tour stage yesterday, stage 20, and Mario Schmid was leading the peloton in some type of a super tuck, and just came around the corner and just crashed himself and just slid out, lost the back end, and flew. And luckily he was okay, and amazingly everybody behind him hit the brakes and was able to get around him, and nobody else crashed. But if you're at the front of the tour and leading in your super tuck, you may want to come out of the tuck so you don't end up crashing out in front of TV. So that was my Ama-Teur move. But I will say, as a bit of a savior to him, he was seen later back at the front hammering and pulling and setting tempo for his team, who had a bit of a lower GC battle going on. So he did definitely get back up after his amateur move and save some face. Yeah. So that's the Ama-Teur for this week.
And I would say yes, the Ama-Teur tour isn't just cycling. It's anything in life. When you make an amateur move, right, that someone who's had some time doing whatever you're doing wouldn't do it. So Ama-Teur is amateur. Diaz talked about that DuPont. Back then we had national. It was before there were pros and there were amateurs, where now it's just elite, right? So we did have national teams racing with the top European professionals,
Yeah, which is great, because he was actually an amateur, not just an amateur move, but it was actually a licensed amateur.
Yeah.
Which is why it was so good.
Well, one could argue that the Eastern Bloc countries were all pros anyway, right?
They were.
Yeah.
They were all pros. And those guys that you were racing against then, they had been here for the Tour of Santa Barbara and Redlands. The Red Locomotive Army or Red Army or something, they had a name. And those guys all went on to, Berzin went on to win the Giro. I think he ultimately tested positive. I assume he still holds that title, but did he win the Giro?
He won the Giro. I don't think he tested positive, though.
He won the Giro and beat Miguel Indurain.
Yeah, and then Bobrick won the Tour of Lombardy one year. They were all on that Jouist team in the early 90s, so they were definitely had some firepower going on.
Well, that team,
as the records show.
Yes. Yeah, I think Dmitry Zhdanov might have raced for Panasonic. Ekimov raced for Panasonic, although Ekimov wasn't on that team. I think he was the generation just ahead of those guys. Like him and Kianishev were a little bit older. They had already turned pro, but the Ama-Teur tour.
All right, so that's our Ama-Teur. Yeah.
I'm going to self-nominate myself for an Ama-Teur. I've recently been riding an XCO bike with a lot of technology and a lot of buttons. And I'm a left-handed person, and I'm also probably quasi-dyslexic or something, so I forget my buttons, and I'm dropping my dropper when I'm supposed to be shifting, and I'm locking out my fork when I'm supposed to be shifting, or my seat's up when it should be down. And so I'm getting better at it, but there's a lot of amateur moments when the seat is in the wrong place or coming up a little too fast or something. And time on the bike fix those amateur mistakes. Also, the one thing I would talk about amateur is when we were all growing up, we held ourselves to a higher standard, which I think needs to be around a little bit. Like, we would ride each other pretty hard and make sure, one, you weren't late for the ride. Two, when you showed up traveling to the races, you had your shit together and you weren't an amateur.
Yeah.
You had your food, you had your gear. You could take care of yourself. You weren't going to be late.
Weren't relying on other people for your stuff, your necessary items.
Yeah,
That's right. I mean, that was before Ama-Teur, but we did have the nickname of Rely.
Yeah.
Because we had a buddy that always would forget shit and would rely on other people.
Yeah.
So I say modern day, don't make your problem my problem.
Yeah, so make sure your seat bag, you don't rely on other people for your seat bag. So maybe tonight crack it open and see what you got in there, so you don't have any more amateur moments.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I think sometimes at this point we tend to kind of tease what the topics will be coming forward. I think that we've floated out a few things that we haven't covered, so maybe we won't. You get the general themes that we're going to cover. I mean, is there anything we want to tease going forward, or we just we sit today? We had a coffee meeting for an hour where we worked out our topics for today. We want to be fresh. We don't want to be redundant. We don't want to be like every other podcast. So we welcome your feedback. So please send us your comments, things that you'd like to see us talk about and cover. Is there anything last minute thoughts you guys would like to share?
No, I think I said it. I think I got it all out, fortunately. I'll probably remember it all right when we hit stop.
I mean, I think not for this one, but going forward, I think there's definitely more of a discussion about the bike handling and the crashes and what's really causing the crashes, and also what's allowing riders to get up from crashes versus getting carried away in an ambulance from crashes. Because I think that there's always a factor of luck, a little bit of that in there. Although if you really think about it and say you make your own luck. And I think that's something that we can go into more, especially now with the camera work is so great at these events. We can find this stuff, we can share it with you, and you all, our listeners, you can go and find this stuff yourself and really look at it. Like I said, the camera work is great now, so there's an abundance of that stuff out there. So I would like to, I think talk about that a bit more, because it's not just all about how many watts you can push. Because if you can't stay on your bike, it doesn't matter how strong you are. So
100%.
So we really value your comments in the comment sections down below, and you can email us or DM us on the socials. We're on a Service Course Report on Instagram. We're on Substack, where we can get Darren and Kurt to write an article on something unique there. So, sometimes stuff translates better in the written word. I'm getting tired.
He's blasted from the ride yesterday still.
And he only had one coffee.
Yeah, that's it. Needed a second.
So we want to tell everyone for hanging with us in our outdoor studio. Darren's been holding the umbrella with his left hand the whole time. I've been holding the microphone. Hopefully there's not too much feedback. Bear with us. But we really appreciate your likes, shares, your subscriptions, and welcome your feedback on what you'd like to see us talk about. So take care and see you out there.
All right.
Hey, don't hit stop yet, because if you look, we're actually all here together, right?
Can we get all in one?
We gotta get it next camera. We just couldn't figure out the last camera. So
There's my.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Old dude's doing tech. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wind noise and barking dogs. See you guys.
Okay.